Okay. Um, I'm not going to go through a full-length class today because I still got a lot to write for a report. That's why I'll try to end this class a little bit early. Whatever topic we will have left, we will finish it off in day after tomorrow's class. That's on Wednesday. We'll have 2 classes back to back. And there we can see how we can get the entire thing working, like the camera tracking and also motion tracking in place. So we'll see bits and pieces of this in today's class. In our last class, let me load it up if I have it saved. Okay, so this is what we got. And it doesn't really look realistic by any means. Okay. What we did achieve though, we managed to take this thing, which is a 3D object, and we have a pre-recorded footage. We managed to combine them together with something called compositing. Okay. So what you see on the right side is the composition. We can compose a scene taking input from many different layers. Some of this can be our 3D renders, some of these can be still images, and also video recording. So right in this particular render, you can see that we have a recorded footage, which is a movie. We have a still object right here that's being used as a background, although it doesn't really make sense to use it as a background because it's going to look weird as you go through different frames. It's going to stay still, and that's why this is not a good choice, right? What we're going to do over in this class and maybe in the next one is that we will have a custom 3D background for this particular character so that it seems well, right? Fits in or gels well in the whole setup. So if you remember, what we have done already, like in the compositor, with the help of Node Editor, we have a keying node that actually deletes this entire thing, deletes the green screen, makes it transparent, and then there are some sliders that we can play around with to make sure that this character is not transparent. Okay, without those modifications, what we had is that you could see through this guy. You can see the background, and that really doesn't look realistic. So I'd ask you to play with all these things to get a feel of this thing. And we also notice that it's up to you what key color you're going to choose so that you can make that part transparent in that scene. Now there are a lot of problems that we have already in this particular setup. We see that there are a lot of artifacts in this entire scene that will get rendered out. So we have taken out the green part, but if you look at the border on the top and also on the right side, there are a lot of other stuff that's in there in the scene, and they have to be removed somehow. Okay. So in today's class, that's going to be the primary target. How can you remove those? And I'll try to show you over here how to do that, but a very good tutorial to follow would be the YouTube video that I was playing in our last class, where you saw that there was a man hanging from a ledge and he was falling down, right? The entire shot was taken in an indoor setting, but then they removed the green screen and then faked it with a 3D thing that they inserted in there manually. So let me try looking it up again. Blender, green screen, and that should bring it up. Yeah. Beginner Blender VFX tutorial, green screen masking. That's the tutorial that I'm talking about. It's from CG Geek. They have a lot of fun little tutorials, and this is one of the very useful ones. So here, if you notice that they have the same problem. When you record this footage or any such thing, you'd have to create your own green screen. But it doesn't mean that you can cover each and everything within your camera frame and make them all green. It's not really possible, right? Sometimes it can, sometimes it cannot. So what you see over here, that there are a lot of artifacts that you probably want to remove and then use this green screen. Okay, so you can see already that somehow they have drawn an area within which this person is, and if you go to another frame, this thing will change, right? Because the camera is moving, maybe the person is moving, so depending on different frames, this thing will change. So we have to manage that somehow. The main target is to keep this green part, because that's easy to take out. But all these things over here, they have a lot of variation in color and a lot of objects, so it's really difficult to take them out. If you pick, let's say, this brown color, everything that's brown will be taken out. But we don't want that, because, well, maybe if I pick this one, a lot of the part of the skin will go out, wherever it matches, all right? So yeah, like how can we take care of that? That is our question, because we have something very similar. A part of the set can be seen right here. Okay. We also have some other stuff like the cross symbols. Okay, we need to take them out as well. Those are very important to be placed in the scene because they help us track the movement of the camera. If you have a recorded footage, in this particular footage, we are very fortunate because this person over here doesn't move at all, right? But when we record our own footage, maybe we'll have the character himself or herself moving around, doing something, and at the same time, the cameraman will also be moving with the camera. So how do you know how the camera moved? It's really hard to determine, and that's why we place those cross markers or any such marker within the scene so that we can track the movement of the camera. That's called camera tracking. When we track the movement of the person, that's called what? Motion tracking. So those are two different terms. Okay. So what we'll be using right now, this is called masking. We will create a mask so that we can cover this girl only. Okay? And then we'll have some part of it as green that we can take out with what? With this keying thing. So that's the basic idea, that you draw a mask around this girl and everything outside that mask will be deleted. Whether that's green or not, that will be deleted right away. And after that, we will use the keying channel over here to take out the green part. Okay. So let us just look at the process, how to do this thing. Okay. In order to do that, what we'll be going through is called motion tracking. And let us open the clip right over here. Okay. You should be familiar with this thing. We have used this before. We use the default one usually, but then we have also used it for UV editing. Okay. We have seen this in action. And in today's class, we're going into motion tracking. All right. We're going to track the motion, and well, I'm not really talking about these markers right now. What I want to draw is a mask around this thing. Okay. So what you'd see down here is there are two options, and let me zoom up so that you can see better. So down here, by default, what we have is called tracking, all right? It lets us track the movement of anything across frames. Okay. Let me show you how that works, because it's quite important to understand, although we're not focusing on this right now, but this is an important thing. So what we'll be doing is we're going to add markers, and those markers will be tracked through all these frames. That's what's called motion tracking. although we are not going to do that right now. This is just to show you how this is done. See, for example, if I want to track how this plus symbol moves across frames, I can place a marker over here. Actually, these are called trackers, and then we can track the movement of this thing. There's a play button. It will go through each and every frame one after another, and you can see that it's actually staying along with that plus sign. It's changing its location, right? Going from one frame to another frame, this thing is actually changing the location, and we're tracking the movement of it. Okay. Here's a graph, and this graph represents how this thing is moving in two different axes, because this is a recorded footage. This is in 2 dimension. We have X and Y, and the amplitude that you see in the graph, this actually represents how much it's moving in the X direction and how much it's moving in the Y direction. So there are 2 different colors, red for the X1 and the green ones, that's for Y. Well, you probably didn't see that, sorry. Yeah, that's the graph that I was talking about. Okay. So let me go through that again. If I drag my mouse pointer, see, it's actually tracking it nice, and over here there's a bit of jerk going up and down, and that's why there is a little bit of a variation. Also, the X value is also changing. Okay. If I were to give you another example which is more drastic, maybe I'll be picking this one. So what you can do is you can click on this add menu, add button to add a new marker, or I think you can, press Control and left mouse button to insert a new one. Let me get, screencast display is not going to work over here. There is no option over here. So the shortcut that I just used, let me write it down. This is Control plus left mouse button. Okay. So once you have that, right, if you have Control left mouse button, you can scale this with S, just like anything else. And the target is to make sure that you have the marker. Whatever you have in your footage, you place the marker within that rectangle and you scale it that way. Okay. How does Blender know how to track this thing? The markers are picked in such a way that it will have high contrast around itself. Okay. So if you look at this thing, this is very easy to distinguish, right? All these things are of the same color, and right in the middle you have something in a different shade. It can be lighter or it can be darker, but there has to be some contrast, some change in here. And once you have that, this is not really computer graphics. This is mostly image processing that we're doing. We will go through each and every frame and we'll try to match how much did it move. So we are going to hit the play button over here, and then it's going to track. The inner working it's a research challenge by itself, how you can track the same object going across many different frames. Okay. And this one in particular, right here, Blender does a pretty good job in tracking, but right here it lost the track. Okay, so when that happens, so right in the next frame maybe, we don't have any more keyframes. Oh, actually, I didn't lose it. We had only 215 frames. I forgot about it. But if you look at this thing, I downloaded this test wide, and if you look at the number of files, we have 214 of them. Okay, starting from 000. So that's 215 frames altogether, and that's why there is no such thing after that. This is gone. Okay, so what we should do really is to end this thing at 215. Okay, there won't be any more of that. So when we were here, you see that the cross is pretty big, but as we are moving, because we're moving away with the camera, it's actually becoming smaller because it goes away. So Blender's this tracking system is pretty solid. It can actually work with all those variants that the marker can become larger or smaller, or it can move to a different location. So you take two frames, one after another, and try to find the same thing. Because going from one frame to the very next frame, there will be very little change. Okay? But if you jump around, if you take this first frame over here, and then go to this frame, let me just put some markings myself. Okay? So right now, we are over here. And if I jump to frame number, let's say 190, see this thing ends up over here. So I think it was over here. So there is a big change. However, if you go to the previous frame, well, there isn't much change. Okay, there's very little change. Okay, so that's what we do with image processing, that we take two frames side by side, and then it's easy to track how much it moved. But if there's a big jump going from one location to another location, that gets really difficult to track. So that also means that if you have a footage where the character moves too rapidly or the camera moves too rapidly, then that's going to be an issue. So you have to make sure that when you capture the footage, you have a very high resolution camera, and also a camera that can work as an action camera, the ones that have very high shutter speed, so that whatever moves in there doesn't get blurred. So if I'm moving my hand too fast, it should be able to capture all of that movement. It's like, you must have seen that, the slow-mo animations, right? Where you have every little detail going from one frame to another. So you have to have a good camera to capture those footages so that we can track better. If you don't have those, well, this is going to be a challenge. It's very easy to track in this footage because it was given to us by Hollywood Camera Work, and they have good quality footages. But if you try to do it by yourself and try doing this tracking thing, you'll see how difficult it gets. Alright, so that's a different story. I wanted to show you what we do in this motion tracking thing, and that's the default thing, that's the main purpose of it, that we can track. Okay? However, what we really need to do right now has nothing to do with tracking. Okay? Because what we need here is to draw an area within which this girl will reside, and everything else outside this area will be deleted right away. That's the target. Okay? So let us do that. I need to kill this. Where's this grease pencil? Yeah, right here. Okay, so let me delete the trackers. I'm not going to track the markers. What we will be doing down here is we will create a mask. Okay, we'll be creating a mask around this girl, and we'll be tracking the movement of that thing. So how do we create a mask? It's very straightforward. You just hit new, because there was no mask in here, and now we need to create this mask around this skull. How do we do it? Well, yeah, Control left mouse button. I can't show you the screencast display right here because it doesn't work, but what I'm doing over here with my keyboard and my mouse, I'm continuing to draw this pattern with Control and left click. Okay. Don't use too many, don't use too few. I think to finish it off, Alt C. When you're done, you take it close to this pointer and then hit Alt C. So Control left click to place all these points individually, and when you're done, you're closing the loop, Alt C to connect everything, and then you're done. Okay. We could also pick a mask as a square or a circle. Those are the default ones. But over here, I thought that going with this particular shape would be much better, because we can actually capture this shape itself. I mean, using a square or a circle wouldn't really help in this case. Now, once you have done that, you may have to adjust a few things, right? Alt C. So let me write them down. Control plus left mouse button. That's for introducing all these points. Okay? And when you're finishing off, like I did over here, I had one point over here and I had another one over here, and I joined that. That joining was done with Alt plus C. Is this clear? Okay, so let me delete that then. Now, what I was saying is that sometimes you may have to adjust the location of these points, and that's, excuse me, that's actually pretty easy to do. All you need to do is to right click and then hit G for grab, and then move it away as much as needed, right? So maybe over here, maybe up here. Okay, you could also select them all and scale them or move them out as needed. G for grab, S for scale, all those things that we have used for such a long time. We can use the same thing over and over again. Now, what we need to do is we need to go frame by frame and see how we need to change this shape to make sure that the girl stays within that mask. Okay. We have created this initial mask, but that doesn't tell us that when we go to another frame, for example, the mask will follow. Okay. Sometimes it will, like most times it will, but there can be scenarios like right over here, you can see already that I'm cutting off the leg, the fit is out, right? That doesn't help. So yeah, what do? Like we keep on going through this footage, and where we see that it's getting tight, you move it out, right? So I made a little adjustment there, and well, now this is getting tighter. So maybe I will want to scale it up a little bit, bring it down over here, so that this mask fits. Let us go over here, and over here maybe scaling is not needed. What I do need is to adjust this one or this one a little bit. This is the same concept as keyframe, right? You go to a particular frame, you make those changes, and Blender will do the adjustment as necessary. So that looks sort of okay. Well, maybe like so. Oh, you know what? What I did wasn't right. Because if you notice that the mask is not changing the shape, it stays like that. I was just lucky that it actually covers the entire footage. But in some cases, you'd see that the object is moving out and the mask has to change. So what I did over here, I forgot to click on this automatic keyframe insertion thing. Okay. Yeah, well, not so lucky. Due to the way that I changed these things, if you look at the very first frame, we do have a problem, because we have part of the thing that we wanted to delete, it's within this thing, that's why it won't get deleted. So what you do is you just click on this record button so that you don't have to insert it manually. And just because I screwed up, let me do this thing one more time. So I'll fix that, and perhaps go over here. Well, I'm covering too much area, maybe I'll reduce that. And yeah, well, now it works. Do you see the change? Okay. So yes, this is important that you have to record the thing that you're changing, and let me track through to see whether it fits the entire thing. Okay, well, yeah. Right over here, maybe I'd like to make some more room so that I don't crop anything. Well, maybe over here it would be better to move this out like so, and then we can finish this off. Okay, so let us go through this entire thing. You'd see that the shape is changing, right? And we are also moving the mask as needed, just to make sure that the girl stays within that mask. Is this thing clear? Okay. Now that we have this mask prepared, this is called mask, and you can double click on it to change the name to anything that you feel is appropriate. So just wanted to make sure that I know what I have. It's the girl_mask, and you can give any proper name for it, whatever you need in your footage, right? Okay, so we came to this motion tracking. That's the environment, right? We came to this motion tracking environment just to make sure that the mask is right, and it's part of the entire setup. We go back to the default view. We do have this problem over here. So we need to do something about this, that we will take it out. Everything that's outside this, that will be taken out. How do we do this? We just add a new mask node, okay? What we'd be using as mask? The girl mask. And that's why I gave that name, all right, so that we can find it over here. And the output of this thing will go somewhere over here as input to this keying channel. Okay, so let us try this out. We already have a key color, so definitely we're not going to ruin that, right? Let us treat this as garbage. Okay, that doesn't work. So what happened in here is that everything that was inside that mask got deleted. Okay, and everything else is here, and that's exactly the opposite of what we want. So if we put it over here, that also doesn't work. I mean, yeah, we can see the mask, but that's not the intention. You don't want to see the mask. You want everything else to be taken out. Okay, so maybe we're going to use this, but like for those of you who know Photoshop or GIMP, you have used that, you can select an area, right? Let me show you this thing. It's a easy to understand concept if you look at it this way. So let's go into the downloads. I think that's where these pictures are. Test White, and I'll pick any of these. So here's this lasso tool, right? I can select or draw with an area. Now what happened over here, that this part got deleted because we had the selector and we just deleted that, and everything else stayed. I don't want this. I just want to do the inverse of it. I have a selection, this is the mask, and I want to invert the selection And in GIMP, the shortcut is Control-I. For Photoshop, it should be something else, and you don't really have to know that. I mean, you can just look it up on the menu. What I did right now is I selected the inverted thing and deleted that. So this is the process. You can have a selection, and you can invert that selection to get something else. So how do we do this over here? It's exactly how I said what we're going to do. We got the mask, and we see that it's actually deleting whatever is inside the mask. So why not invert this? And that's it. Okay. This node editor is pretty advanced. You can drop in a node and it will know which things to connect. And most often it does things right. If it doesn't, well, you know how to fix that. So what we are doing, we are feeding the output of this mask to an inverter, and from the inverter we are going into the garbage. Because what we are trying to say, that whatever is outside that mask is your garbage, so delete those and then deal with the rest. So do we see any other artifact in this thing? And they're all gone. So this is nice and clean, and now we can use this over here. We do have some problems though. Do you see this shade? When you go from one frame to another, this will get animated, and you should be able to see this as well. Okay. The reason why we have that, because there is color variation going on, and there's some shadow casted, so this part is a little bit darker than what we have as key. So picking the right key color, this is important. So if I were to lower it down, see, that disappears. Did you notice that effect? We had a bright green color. That's why we see the darker shade now. But if I go and modify that key color to make it lighter, do you see how that thing vanishes? Okay. So when you choose the key color, you got to make sure that the stuff that you want to delete is actually getting deleted. Okay. Picking the right key color is very important. And sometimes it will be quite impossible to pick one single color, and over there we do have an option to pick a color ramp, a range of color that maybe changes over time, over frame. Okay? But that's a little bit advanced topic. I don't want to go into that. If you do have a footage that has a bit of a color variation within the green screen, then that's going to be an issue. Particularly the example that I was showing you on YouTube, it's a very nice example right there, because it shows you all those challenges that we don't have over here. If you notice, if you look at the green over here, that's very bright, and over here we have very dark shade of green. So when you delete these things, they have to be taken out. Okay, all these things have to go away so that you can create your own 3D environment and compose a final scene. Okay, so now that we have this thing, this mask ready, the next task would be to track the movement of those markers, those tiny little markers. Well, it's easier to show on these pictures maybe. Yeah, so there are plenty of markers over here. We need to track the movement of those so that we can understand how the camera moved when this footage was shot. Okay. This is quite interesting to follow this particular frame of this entire footage. Let me go through that. See, in most rooms, when you look at a room, what you'll find that there is a clear distinction between the floor and the walls. However, in this particular shot, this is not quite apparent. Do you see any line drawn that separates this floor from the wall? There is no such thing. I mean, the same thing appears over here as well. Okay? And over here we have two sides that meet up somewhere in between, but we don't see that line. Okay? However, if you ask yourself, can you sort of imagine where that line is? Can you track that? See, our human eyes, they're quite trained to find out these differences. Maybe the place where these two side walls are joined is right over here along this line. And maybe... yeah. But it's not on the little markers, but it's actually beside that. How I know that? When you play the footage, you get to see the variation of it. And to me, it appears that the two walls, they meet over here, and the wall meets the floor over here, and also down here. Okay. They try to make it as smooth as possible, because then it becomes easier to delete in terms of green screen. If they have very crisp edges, then they will have a line left, a dark line left that will be over there. You don't want that to appear. Okay? That's why you try to make it as smooth as possible. So it's a nice green screen, that's for sure. But it's also a bit of a problem for us because we don't know exactly where to place these things. However, if you go through the footages, we as humans will be able to understand exactly where the corner points are. And that's important to know. So I'm not going to do it today because I said that I'm going to end this class a little bit early today. In our next class, what we'll be doing would be tracking these things, and we'll be marking some of these markers as markers on the floor and some of those markers that are on the wall. We will define a x-axis and we will also define a y-axis. Okay? That would help us set up this entire scene. Where is the floor, where is the wall? We need to know that, so that we can construct a fake 3D environment, a fake 3D room for this character. Maybe we will create this room, we'll have a chair, we'll have some desk or whatever, we can create that by ourselves. Okay. Now, how do you know that something is on the floor versus something that's on the wall? How do you know that as a human? How do you know that something is on the floor over here versus something is on the wall up there? You see, this is something that your eyes understand well. It sends a signal to the brain. The reason we know that these things are on the floor because they appear bigger, and as they are going further away, they're becoming smaller. This is called perspective foreshortening, right? So the further away an object is from your eyes, the smaller it gets. Okay? So the things that are closer to you on the floor, they will appear bigger and they will go away. And if you move your camera, okay, the stuff that's in front of your eyes, they're not going to move that much, but the ones that are further away, they will move a lot. Okay. What I mean by that is, let's say I'm going to take a selfie over here with this. I'm actually not doing that. It's turned off. But yeah, like if I move this thing over here, my face doesn't move too much. It's closer to me. But if I tilt the angle, then this whole background will move very rapidly. Okay? It's a very well-known fact, right? So the objects that are further away from you, they're going to move lots compared to what we have right here. Excuse me for a little bit. জি বলছি ওকে বলছেন কতগুলো পান আছে? 35টার মতো পাননি এখনো। আমি একটু প্রোগ্রাম অফিসে খোঁজ নিয়ে আমি দেখি কোনগুলো বাকি বা পেন্ডিং হয়ে গেছে কিনা। হ্যাঁ, মানে দেরি হয়ে যাচ্ছে অনেক বেশি, বুঝতে পারছি। না, সেটা অবশ্যই যাচ্ছি না, আমি দেখছি প্রোগ্রাম অফিসে খোঁজ নিয়ে আমি দেখছি। Sorry about that. So yeah, this effect that the objects that are further away from us, they will move faster compared to something that's closer to us. So as I'm going through these frames, you'll see that this cross is not moving much, but the ones that are further away in the background, they're going to move a lot. Okay? And this is a very important observation that Blender will then use to determine how things are moving. Okay? We will mark a few of these markers and say that these 3 markers perhaps they define my floor. Or I could pick something else, like maybe this one, and this one. They're all defining the floor. Why do I need 3 markers to define a floor? Any clue? No. Why? That's the question. Yeah, not really the mesh, but plane. You need at least 3 points to make a plane. The floor is a plane, that's why you need at least 3 of those. Okay? To mark the wall, you also need 3. Okay, so let us get back to this, that we'll be marking 3 of these markers. We'll track the movement of this. Markers like this one is a bad choice. Why? Because it will get lost. Sometimes you'd see it, and sometimes it will go missing, like the one over here. This one marker over here, if I go to the next frames, you'll see that it gets lost. Okay. So how would Blender know, right? We're going to go through frame after frame, trying to track this particular marker, but that's not going to happen. It will be lost at that point, and to make sure that that doesn't happen, we either have to imagine by ourselves where the marker is, and that's a tedious process. You'd have to mark it for every frame. So rather than doing that, we would be picking a marker that actually stays visible for the entire thing. Okay? So those are the things we will be covering in our next class, to see how we can track the movement of the camera, because we can't see that with our human eyes. We can sort of understand what's closer to us and what's further away to us. This particular phenomena, that the objects that are further away from our eyes, they move too much compared to something that's closer to our eyes, this is called parallax. Okay, and you'd see very cool effects. You can take a 2D picture and introduce parallax effects with image manipulation tool like Photoshop. So let me show you an example, just so you know that this is something people do. Parallax. Okay. Let me see, parallax, Photoshop. Can I get a good example of this? So it says 2.5D because this is actually a 2D picture where you have a 3D effect. It will appear that you have a 3D thing. Yeah, this one. This is made out of 2D shot. See? It appears that you're looking at a video. But this is actually a 2D picture. Okay? So there's some faking tricks that you can employ to make some effect like that. Okay? Because the objects that are closer to you, closer to your eyes, they're not going to move much compared to something that's in the background. They're going to move a lot, and that's something you will see right in here as well. As I went through the frames, you saw that these objects are, these markers, they're actually moving a lot. So all these things we'll cover in our next class, how we can track that. In today's class, the important discussion and the only thing that we did is we went into the motion tracking environment. We set up a mask, and we also animated the mask just by clicking this record tool. So it recorded the entire shape, and we could track it over. We inserted a new node in here. We got the mask, we inverted that, and we feed that into the garbage mat. Is this thing clear? Okay. So I'm going to pass this around, and for those of you who came in late, I had a very important announcement for all the students in this class. Our next class is going to be on Wednesday. I'm not calling it off. I mean, these topics, they're not going to be on exam because I won't have any chance to cover them in the other section. That's why I can't have them in the exam. But these are fun stuff. I mean, you can have your own footage. You can do a lot of things with these things. So there's no reason for you not to want to learn these things. I want all of you to be present in that class. Also make sure that you're here on time. We got 2 classes back to back. We'll have 2 full classes. We'll cover all these things. And we got the theory class and the lab class. The reason I'm stressing on this is because we have an external peer review team coming. Okay, Kaikwad sir will be here, and there will be 2 other members, one from India and one from some other university. They'll be here. They'll be assessing what's the quality of our education. They'll be visiting some of the classrooms to see how the teachers conduct the lectures. All right. So yeah, please make sure that you're here, you attend the class, wear your ID, come with decent clothing, and while you're at it, they're probably going to sit right at the back to see how the class is taking place. So make sure that you're not watching some YouTube video or browsing Facebook at that time, because I know that you're doing that right now, some of you. It's a common practice, but well, don't do that in front of them. What else? Well, nothing much. Any question about anything that we covered today?